So if you were to ask the average person on the street whether the earth is round or flat, you would probably get some weird looks and then the answer something along the lines of it's round. Obviously, everybody knows that. But if you were then to go on and ask them why they know that it's round or how they know that it's round and not flat, most people would just kind of stare at you for a minute and then say something along the lines of, I don't know, like we know that. We have pictures from space. Everybody knows it. This line of reasoning, or really lack of reasoning, is one of the reasons why Danny Faulkner wrote this book, Falling Flat, a refutation of flat earth claims. Most people have no idea how they know that the earth is round. They just think that they know it. This is a great example of a pervasive problem in modern culture with the idea of epistemology. This is the study of knowledge. Epistemology answers the question, how do we know what we know? And most of us have never thought about that. And for most of us, the things that we know because someone told them to us and we just automatically accepted them and we're like, I don't know, we know because we know. Do I really have to think about it? As far as flat earth was concerned, I really thought I didn't have to think about it until recently when a friend came to me and told me of some dear friends that she has who are flat earthers. I was like, what the heck? I didn't even know that was a thing anymore. Turns out, looking at the back of this book, we were up at the Creation Museum recently and I saw this on the bookshelf. I picked it up and on the back quote of it, it says, unfortunately, as flat earth websites proliferated on the internet, thousands of people soon joined the movement. It's ironic that more people in the West today may believe that the earth is flat than have in 2 millennia. So, I was like, well, guess I'm going to have to read this book. So I have read this book now, and I want to talk with you about 2 key points from it. This book is chock full of all kinds of sciencey stuff. Dr. Faulkner literally goes into everything about everything with all the diagrams and all the math language and all the trigonometry and all the everything. And it is incredibly complex. If you really want all the deepest answers to all the arguments that people make, this is definitely the book to get. But most people are not going to want that. Most people don't need that. I want to give you 2 things to help your own thinking as to why you know the earth is round, but you can't explain it. So, to start out with, what we have to talk about first is the actual understanding of what the flat earth cosmology is. So the easiest way to think about this is that flat earth is essentially a pizza pan. All around the edge of it is Antarctica. There's a dome over the top of it. That dome has the stars attached to it. The moon and sun are inside the dome, but not attached to it. And they go around the earth acting kind of as a spotlight, and that's what makes the day and night. The sun is kind of a spotlight going around the circle of the earth. So if you look at this picture here, this is kind of the best example of the most universally accepted flat earth model, okay? So the 2 things that I want you to be thinking about with this. The first is that it was 200 BC when we first measured the circumference of the Earth accurately. 200 BC. There was a guy named, I don't know how to say this name, so Eratosthenes, I think. And in 200 BC, he accurately measured the Earth's size. He did this by measuring shadows and using trigonometry to figure out 2 different places on the Earth that he knew, and then figured out the Earth's circumference from there. One of the things that's important about this was in 200 BC, and he did it based off of the knowledge and the assumption that the Earth was spherical. Why did he already believe that in 200 BC? Well, one of the reasons why, and this is the first one that I want you to keep in mind, is that when we are at a body of water and we're watching a ship disappear, what we always see is that the ship disappears hull first. Right? We would think if the Earth was flat, it would just get smaller and smaller until I couldn't see it anymore. But if we sit at a body of water and we watch a ship disappear, it disappears hull first, and the last thing to go is the mast and the sails. And anybody sitting on a body of water and looking can see that with their own eyes. The ancients saw that and realized that can't happen if the Earth is flat. That can only happen if there is a sphere, and as the thing is going away, it's going down below my line of sight across this sphere, right? So that's one of the biggest things and the simplest things, which is why in 200 BC, we had an understanding that the Earth couldn't be flat and had to be spherical. Now, as a quick aside, one of the things that flat earthers will continually bring up against this is different points where people have had experiences where they've seen beyond the curve of the Earth. Danny talks extensively about that in this book, being due to inverse mirages, where the air temperature that normally makes a mirage where the image appears upside down is inverted, so the image appears right side up. And so it looks like you're seeing the whole thing when really you're not. you're seeing a mirage of the thing. It's just inverted, and so it looks straight up and down as opposed to how it would normally look on a mirage. But that's the first thing that I want you to remember is when we watch a ship disappear, it goes down below the horizon hull first. And that was something way back when that was assumed and understood in 200 BC when we correctly measured the Earth's circumference for the first time. The second piece that I want you to understand about this is if we go back to this model, in the flat Earth model, the North Star is directly at the top of the dome here, right? And there is no southern hemisphere. There is no north and south hemisphere. It's just a pizza planet, right? So we have the North Star up here. And flat earthers will not deny the existence of the North Star or its location. We can figure that all out. But what I want you to think about is that if this cosmology was true, then no matter where you go inside of this dome, you should be able to see the North Star, right? There's nowhere that you go in here that the North Star should be hidden from you because it's directly at the top of the dome. And if you're inside a snow globe, you can always see the very tip top of the snow globe because that's how it works because you're on a flat surface, okay? That is verifiably not how the world that we live in works. If you go to what we would consider to be the southern hemisphere, you cannot see the North Star. Okay, so that's another one of the things that I want you to think about. And then the third and final thing that I want you to think about is that in this cosmology, the sun acts as a spotlight. And it goes around the surface of the Earth, and that's what makes the day and night, because it is just acting as a spotlight and only lighting up certain portions of the Earth, right? And this makes sense. Like, we know a spotlight does exist, and we know it could do that. The part that I want you to think about is that in order for a spotlight to function, the cone coming out of the light has to be constricted. So a floodlight has a very wide cone of light. A spotlight has a very concentrated cone of light. So in order for something to act as a spotlight, the light has to be concentrated out of it. I don't know anything in this book that he talks about, and I'm not aware of any kind of flat earth theory about the sun being anything other than a giant ball of flame in the sky. And so if you think about that, then the light source of a giant ball of flame that's on fire, because it's a ball of flame, is 360 degrees. It's the widest angle that it can be. There's nothing constricting it. So even though it's theoretically possible that you could have a spotlight that only lights up a portion of the thing, in order for that to happen, something has to constrict the beam. So either the sun has to be entirely different than what we think of it as, just a giant ball of flame, or something has to be constricting all of that light. The other piece that I want you to think about with this, I'm not sure if I'll be able to show this very well, but the closer a light source is to the thing that it's lighting, the closer the diameter of the light matches the actual source. And the further back it gets, the bigger the light goes, because light comes out in a beam that starts either at a tiny angle or a big angle, but either way, as the angle continues, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So if this was to be the case, that the sun was going to be acting as a spotlight on the Earth, when you factor in that even in the flat Earth cosmology, the sun is only 3,000 miles away, the sun is 100 times bigger than the Earth, and it's 3,000 miles away. And so the amount of condensing of that light source that would have to happen to make the sun only light up a tiny portion of the Earth all throughout the day is exponential, and it would make the sun appear as a just barely microscopic thing in the sky and not a giant ball of flame that we can see now that's so bright that you can't even look at it with your bare eyes. Okay, so those are three really quick things that I just wanted to touch on. If you're interested in really understanding all the arguments and how basically every argument that flat earthers make actually is really an argument for a spherical Earth when you understand and apply the science to it properly. But the biggest point that I wanted to take from this whole book is, and I want to read this full quote out loud, because at the end of it, what he said really stuck out to me, especially as someone who runs a booktube channel and is encouraging people to read constantly. And what he said was, as I pointed out in chapter 1, unlike the 19th century flat earth movement, the modern flat earth movement has spawned relatively few books. Rather, the preferred medium for disseminating flat earth information appears to be YouTube videos. I think that is because many flat earthers don't read much. Perhaps many flat earthers don't read much because they find reading boring. And why do some people find reading boring? People who find reading boring generally don't comprehend much of what they are reading. People who lack reading comprehension are just a small step above functional illiteracy. And then he talks about whenever he posts articles coming against flat earth, or specifically a book or an article that he did called Flat Earth in the Bible. He said, when people did respond, the most common comment was a request to put what I had done in a video. This happened repeatedly and it puzzled me for a while. I finally concluded that the people asking for videos simply couldn't follow what I had written. That's a pity because I've concluded that people who can't read with comprehension probably aren't very good at reasoning either, because I think that reading comprehension and reasoning ability probably go hand in hand. No wonder these people have fallen for what I recognized as such poor arguments for flat earth. It's not that these people are stupid, it's just that they've never acquired proper reasoning skills along with reading comprehension. Now, this book came out in 2019. What fascinated me was a couple years later, Read or Come Home by Marianne Wolf came out, and this book is a just deep dive into the science of learning and reading and how reading is the only provable thing that we can actually show that develops critical analysis, reflection, and empathy. This book confirms his gut feeling of it just seems like people who can't read well don't really think that well. This is what Marianne talks about in this book. You cannot think well if you don't practice by learning to read well and having focused time delving into someone's arguments. So it just really hit me with this whole idea that learning to read well is the single best thing you can do for yourself in life. I love what John Lovell, the Warrior Poet Society guy, says, that reading is the thing that protects us from the terrors of ignorance and deceit. I love that. So pick up this book if you haven't. I have a full video about this book that you can read. I'll link that up here somewhere. I also have a full video on John Lovell's book somewhere. If you haven't seen that video, go check that out. I love that book, The Warrior Poet Way. And yeah, if you are interested in falling flat, all of these books, I'll link all of them down below. They are going to be affiliate links that will help this channel if you buy them from there. But if you want this, you want to really dig into all the flat earth stuff and why it's all wrong and doesn't make any sense, definitely pick up this book. So hope you guys are having a great day. Talk to you in the next one. Bye.